What if I told you that one of the quietest legends in football has finally admitted something that changes the Messi-Ronaldo debate forever? Not a journalist, not a pundit, but a man who stood in the middle of the storm for more than a decade. Andrés Iniesta has broken his silence, not with numbers, not with trophies, but with a confession so simple it feels unsettling. One makes you forget the score, he said. The other makes you fear it. So which is more terrifying? Losing control of the game or losing the scoreboard itself? Before we go deeper, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if you love football stories without filters. To understand why these words matter, you have to understand Andrés Iniesta himself. Iniesta is not a provocateur. He is not a headline hunter. Throughout his career, he spoke with his feet, not his mouth. And yet, few players in history have observed the Messi-Ronaldo era from a closer, more privileged position. For more than a decade, Iniesta shared the pitch daily with Lionel Messi, witnessing every version of him: the shy teenager, the silent assassin, the aging genius who no longer runs but still controls everything. At the same time, Iniesta faced Cristiano Ronaldo in the fiercest Clásicos ever played, matches where one mistake could rewrite history. And the numbers only sharpen the contrast. Messi, approaching his late 30s, continues to dominate involvement metrics: goals plus assists, chances created, decisive actions per match. In recent seasons alone, he has reached staggering totals of over 70 direct goal contributions across competitions. Ronaldo, meanwhile, built his legend on something colder and more brutal: seasons of 50, sometimes 60 goals, often appearing when matches were on the brink of collapse. So when a man like Iniesta draws a line not between greatness, but between fear and control, we should listen carefully. Iniesta's confession did not come after a trophy ceremony or a viral debate show. It came quietly, almost accidentally, during a reflective conversation about pressure, fear, and control in football. The kind of conversation former players only allow themselves after everything is over. When asked about the most difficult opponents of his career, Iniesta did not rush to name teams or systems. He paused. And that pause said more than any statistic. Because for him, difficulty was never about tackles or speed. It was about what happens inside your head. He described matches where, against Messi, defenders and midfielders slowly stopped checking the scoreboard. Not because they were winning, but because they no longer knew where the danger would come from. Left, right, center, deep, high. The game dissolved into uncertainty. Then Iniesta shifted tone when speaking about Ronaldo. With Ronaldo, he said, the fear was different. You could defend well for 89 minutes. You could control possession, rhythm, space. And still, you would glance at the scoreboard, because one moment was enough. One cross, one run, one jump, one finish. That contrast stayed with Iniesta. And years later, free from rivalry and obligation, he finally put it into words. When Iniesta said, "One makes you forget the score, the other makes you fear it," he wasn't being poetic. He was being precise. Against Messi, Iniesta explained, the game stops behaving like a game. Possession no longer feels safe. Defensive shape becomes fragile. Even when your team is leading, even when the clock is on your side, something feels wrong. Because Messi doesn't attack the goal first. He attacks order. He bends the rhythm, pulls defenders out of their instincts, forces midfielders to choose, and punishes hesitation instantly. That's why teams playing against Messi often dominate possession on paper, yet feel powerless on the pitch. You are so busy reacting to him that the scoreboard fades into the background. You are no longer playing to win. You are playing to survive the next 30 seconds. With Ronaldo, Iniesta said, the psychology flips. The structure stays intact. Your lines hold. The match plan works. But the scoreboard becomes an obsession. Every cross feels dangerous. Every set piece tightens your chest. Every second you spend defending feels like borrowed time. Because Ronaldo doesn't need chaos. He waits for certainty. And then he destroys it. Iniesta's point was subtle but devastating. Messi erodes your confidence gradually. Ronaldo ends you suddenly. So ask yourself this. Which fear would you choose? The fear of losing control or the fear of losing everything in a single moment? Football history has always loved categories. The conductor and the finisher. the brain and the blade, the player who controls time, and the one who ends it. Iniesta's confession fits perfectly into this ancient divide, but also exposes why Messi and Ronaldo shattered it. In the past, the conductor needed others to score. The finisher needed others to create. But Messi and Ronaldo refused to stay in their boxes. Messi became a system, not just a playmaker, not just a scorer, but the gravitational center of the match. Teams didn't defend against his position, they defended against his presence. That's why Iniesta says you forget the score. Because when the game belongs to one mind, numbers lose meaning. Ronaldo, on the other hand, perfected the art of inevitability. He didn't dissolve structure, he exploited it. He studied patterns, timing, fatigue, doubt. History remembers him not for controlling games, but for deciding them when everyone else was exhausted. Finals. Knockout rounds. Last minutes. This is where the GOAT debate fractures. Because how do you compare two players who rule football in opposite ways? One dominates process, the other dominates outcome. One makes football feel unfair, the other makes football feel merciless. And that's why every argument ends in frustration. People aren't disagreeing about who is better. They're disagreeing about what greatness actually means. Iniesta's words do something dangerous. They remove comfort. Because once you accept his truth, you can no longer hide behind statistics alone. You are forced to ask harder questions. If you were a coach preparing a final, which nightmare would you rather face? A player who controls every second of the match, or a player who only needs one? This is why managers spoke about Messi as a problem without a solution, and why they spoke about Ronaldo as a problem that must not be allowed to exist. One changes the flow of football itself. The other changes its ending. Iniesta's confession also explains something deeper. Why fans will never agree. Messi lovers value harmony, intelligence, and domination without violence. Ronaldo admirers value will, timing, and the cruelty of decisive moments. Neither side is wrong. They are simply loyal to different definitions of fear. And here is the most unsettling part. Football may never see this again. Modern systems are too rigid, data too precise, spaces too controlled. The age of total control and total inevitability may have died with them. Iniesta didn't choose a winner. He revealed a fracture line in football history, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Andrés Iniesta didn't end the Messi-Ronaldo debate. He did something far more unsettling. He explained why it can never end. Because one made football lose its structure, the other made football lose its mercy. Control versus execution. Fear versus inevitability. So now the question is yours. If you were on the pitch, which would haunt you more? The player who makes you forget the score, or the one who makes you fear it until the final whistle? Tell us in the comments. Like the video, share it with real football lovers, and subscribe for more stories where football tells the truth without filters.